I'm not good enough. Nobody likes me. I'm so annoying. Even this girl, the way she looked at me today, I'm pretty sure she probably hates me. Everyone says I can't do it, so it probably must be true. Oh, these thoughts. These stupid, intrusive thoughts. You know, we all have them. And lately, I've been thinking a lot about them. Maybe because they started accumulating in my brain and I just had to find a way to challenge them, to start doubting them. Because, you know, when you let them ride free, they just start to make you feel all depressed and you start believing them and it's just a big mess. And in this video, I will share exactly that. So how am I doubting them? How am I challenging them? And what have I come across that really has helped me with how I am dealing with these thoughts? So if you're interested, buckle up and let's go. No, let's do that again. If you're interested, keep on watching. Just a little disclaimer, I'm not an expert, I'm not a psychologist, nor am I a neuroscientist. I'm just merely someone who had a little bit of interest in this topic, and maybe I just scratched the surface level of what is out there in terms of information and things you can read about it. It's just a little bit of fun and a little info, a little brain food, call it what you want. Enjoy and see you later. Yeah. So recently I came across this very interesting piece of information that I will share with you while making this cheesecake. Well, because why not? So what I read is that reality as we see it is actually not reality, but rather a reconstruction of it built inside our brains. So whatever we see out there in the world, and we obviously feel very much convinced that it is real, and there's no doubt about that, is actually not always the case. What we end up perceiving as reality is the end product of our storytelling brains, which probably means that we do not know or have experienced the entirety of reality, let alone the objective truth of it. Every person's view of the world is co-created by their uniquely shaped brains, and that as a fact is very groundbreaking. Here's a quote I read. Most of the time, the story our brains generate matches the real physical world, but not always. Our brains also unconsciously bend our perception of reality to meet our desires or expectations, and they fill in gaps using our past experiences. So this info is really interesting, not because we should freak out or start doubting everything that is in front of us, but just to know that there are blind spots and our brains also can sort of co-create stories that aren't necessarily always accurate. Here's another quote that I read that kind of underlines the entire argument. It says, "Our senses are limited. They simply can't process most of what is actually going on in the great oceans of electromagnetic radiation that surround us. Human eyes are able to read only a small portion of the spectrum called visible light. Evolution shaped us with perceptions that allow us to survive, but part of that involves hiding from us the stuff we don't need to know. And that is pretty much all of reality, whatever reality might be." Color is also a perception created by the brain in response to different wavelengths of light. So objects apparently do not possess an inherent color, instead they reflect or emit light at a certain wavelengths, and these are then picked up by the brain, and then the sensation of color is being created. So I don't know if color is an illusion or not, I don't know if that's the conclusion. All I know is that it's interesting to see that the brain also plays a role in how we see color, for example. And additionally, we should know that humans are only trichromatic, meaning we have 3 cone cells in our eyes, blue, green, and red. But there's some animals that have more. So for example, there's birds that have 6. The mantis shrimp has 16. And bees, for example, are able to detect electromagnetic fields in their vision. Although we're all creatures living on this world, how we visually see the world differs. Human beings are one way to see the world, and there's mantis shrimp seeing it differently, there's bees seeing it differently. I love that variety. I love that realization that there's so many variety out there of how the world is being perceived. All of these facts that I'm sharing go much deeper into neuroscience, and you can definitely read up on it if you're interested. But another thing that we can add here, and I find it very interesting, is explaining why the brain falls for optical illusions. You know, the images where you see something else instead of what is being shown. Basically, the brain is being tricked in that moment. Our visual system picks up the information correctly, but because there's so many areas of our brain that correlate with our visual cortex, what we end up seeing is not what our eyes saw, but what our brain told us. You know what I mean? So the senses gather information, send them to the brain, but the brain doesn't just merely receive this information, but also maintains and creates our perception of the world. So fills in blind spots with predictions and so on. And that is why we fall for optical illusions. So we end up seeing our brain's predictions and not necessarily exactly what our eyes saw in that moment, which I find super interesting, because that means that our brain tries to stay in control all the time and tries to sort of say, oh, okay, there's a little blind spot, let's fill it up with some prediction here. And that can also be a little bit inaccurate, just like it happens with optical illusions. Why am I sharing all of this? Well, that's a very good question. I'm sharing all of this because right now we have built up an argument, haven't we? Because we've seen things. We have seen things. We saw that the brain makes predictions. We saw that these predictions are based on past experiences. We saw that they can be inaccurate. That was my water bottle. We saw that there's a lot of things that the brain is doing. And the brain is a storyteller, isn't it? Now, I'm being goofy here. What we saw is that the brain can make mistakes. And that is a very nice thing to remember at all times, that the brain can make mistakes. And not everything we think is accurate. And if you think about it, we have like 60 to 70,000 thoughts per day. That is a very big number of thoughts. And I really doubt that all of these thoughts are correct and accurate and amazing and true. And especially when it comes to how we think about ourselves, our belief system, and how we perceive the world, our social environment, it's very important to always remember that not everything we think reflects the truth. In the CBT model, we have the therapist, obviously, that works very closely with the patient. And what they're doing is they're breaking down this patient's belief systems and thoughts. Beliefs are the meanings we make of the world, what we believe about ourselves, what we believe about others around us, and usually that leads to us perceiving, our social environment in some kind of way. So the therapist closely works with the patient to break down these beliefs and thought patterns, and ultimately the goal is to replace them with more accurate and helpful ways of thinking and beliefs that can actually really serve the patient and can really be aligned with who that person is. So based on what I just explained about the CBT model, I want to take two terms out of this explanation. I want to take the word beliefs and I want to take the word thoughts. Let's start with the word thoughts because I want to make a little tiny example to make it more clear. So let's say we have Sarah, which is someone who works in a company, and they are having a company event. And Sarah is like around people, around coworkers and stuff, and she shares a joke and no one's paying attention to her and no one's laughing at what she just said. And her coworkers seem to kind of just continue their conversation, literally ignoring what Sarah just said. So that is the situation, that is the trigger, let's say. After that, Sarah starts feeling very sad and disappointed, and she cannot just enjoy herself after this. She starts feeling very uneasy about herself. Everything comes up. That is how Sarah feels. One could say the situation caused the feeling, but that's not really what happened. So there was a middle part that we haven't explored yet, and that is the automatic thoughts. So we have the situation that causes automatic thoughts that causes feelings. And what were Sarah's automatic thoughts? Well, Sarah thought, nobody likes me, nobody cares about me, I'm such a weirdo, everybody hates me. That's what Sarah thought. The automatic thoughts are what caused the feeling and not the situation. And that is so important because that is what we encounter every single day. Something happens and we feel a certain way. And we usually think about the emotion because that is so strong, it takes over our bodies, that the emotion is what we remember. We remember how we felt, but we forget about the automatic thoughts because automatic thoughts are so sneaky. They pop up in our brain super fast, like tuck, 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 very fast. So once this happened to Sarah, Sarah was like, I'm not good enough, nobody likes me, everybody hates me, like, I don't even know, I'm not funny, you know, all of these things. So these thoughts are so fast, they're super specific, they pop up out of nowhere, and because they seem very logical in that moment, they trick us, and so we never really doubt them. It's like we accept them as the ultimate truth, and we don't even think to blame them for how we feel. The situation alone, usually what happens, doesn't cause a feeling, but what we think about it is what causes our feeling. We could totally interpret this whole situation completely differently just right now. Let's see, what could we say? The coworkers didn't listen to our joke because the music was so loud and they couldn't hear it. Or that they didn't hear it because they were consumed by the topic they were talking about, and it had nothing to do with Sarah's worth and her likability or anything. Like, I just created a replacement interpretation of the situation trigger. And you see that automatic thoughts, we tend to believe them as the ultimate truth, but it's just one way to interpret a situation, and that's very nice to start doubting them. In the moment they pop up and appear, it's nice to not just stick on the feeling and say, I feel so bad, I feel so sad, but try to go back to the automatic thoughts and say, wait a minute, why do I feel this way? How can I think about it differently? Because a lot of the times it's not personal. A lot of the times it's not about us at all. And now I want to talk about our beliefs. So we have the automatic thoughts sitting right here in the middle. And if you were to collect and see all of our automatic thoughts during the day of one person, let's say Sarah again, you would notice some kind of patterns. There would be some similarities because our automatic thoughts derive from something. They're not like out of nowhere. They usually follow a pattern or something. And that points down to where it all starts, which is our core beliefs. They sit down somewhere here. And our core beliefs are the root. They're ingrained in us. They're sort of like our foundation that is helping those automatic thoughts bloom and blossom in their not glorious nature. Anyway, so the automatic thoughts are basically the tip of the iceberg, and you have to go down, 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 layers, layers, layers to go to the core beliefs. And in between, there's a lot of like other things that I'm not going to touch upon because whatever. I'm just not. It's nice to know that the automatic thoughts are based on our core beliefs. And the core beliefs, for example, for Sarah again, can be I'm unlovable. That's a core belief. And core beliefs are created early on in our life, maybe childhood or something. So it's something that we carry throughout our lives. Core beliefs are just ideas. It's not the truth. So if you have a core belief like I'm unlovable, I'm incompetent, it's not the reality, you know, it's an idea. And because you're feeling so strongly about it, doesn't make it real. We do have the power to transform those core beliefs and create new ones. And that's the whole point, to try to change the core belief and replace it with one that is actually accurate. One thing that really helps put a stop on the overthinking brain is to start noticing. Observe what's right in front of you. Try not to quickly glance over things. Observe with neutral curiosity. When we glance over things, we usually assume we already know what's to know. But assuming leads to you projecting your ideas and limitations onto things. The way you look at the world a lot of the times becomes a habitual thing, where beliefs, judgments, biases keep you from seeing things you couldn't see so far. And one more thing. When it comes to overthinking social interactions, I would say try to shift the focus away from you. Instead of being consumed in your brain with how you appear to others, try to observe others as if you would see them for the first time. So basically, try to be more interested in them than how you appear to them. And this can maybe help to alleviate that sort of overthinking of everything you say, everything you do. It can be quite helpful. There's this analogy that I learned from meditation, that the mind is like the blue sky. Thoughts come and go like clouds, but the blue sky always remains. So whenever you get a thought, think of it as a cloud, and you are the blue sky. No matter what happens, the cloud will go away eventually, but you will remain. Last but not least, don't always believe everything your mind tells you. this concludes the video. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate every single one of you, I hope there's something useful in this video for you. If you want to comment down below, feel free to do that. And if there's anything I said in this video that is inaccurate in some way, please let me know, because obviously I said I'm not a specialist, nor am I a super expert in this topic. You know, I wanted this video to feel like the kind of conversation you would have with a friend or a colleague, and you would talk about it and you would be like, oh, you don't say. I didn't think about that. It feels like a conversation. It's not really giving thesis. It's not giving expert. It's giving casual conversation. Okay, enough with that. Thank you so much, as I said before, and love you lots. See you in the next video. I can't wait. Looking forward to it. Bye-bye. Bye.